All right. Whew. Man, I think a few things is when you're building a product, have faith in it and have the ability to know what you're doing and really take ownership in that, right? You know, it's obviously like in the tech space, they say you become an owner of something, and so that you become the subject matter expert. I think in this kind of case, being a founder, you need to be the owner of it. Obviously you need to have ownership, as in love it, right? You own a dog, you have a kid. These are the things you fall in love with, right? You have this attachment to it. That should be the same thing in a way, not necessarily. In a way of loving something that you build. This is like something that you build a passion off of. So that thing is love the product that you're building. And now it won't become this, oh, I'm working on this. I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like marketing it. I don't feel like building it. No, you jump into the weeds of every single facet. And if you can't figure it out, or if you can't do it, figure it out. Like if you don't know the skills, if you don't have the skill set, if you don't have the drive for it, try to build the drive for it. Try to have that passion for it. That means getting into the weeds and figuring those certain things out. And obviously, if you can't do it, if you can't figure it out, bring the right people on, bring the right subject matter expert on. But for me, it's about knowing how to do it, knowing where to go, and keep pushing. So the app that I launched was called Yglot, and that's YGLOT. It failed. It definitely failed. And I was running this app for about 2 years. And so it failed because a lack of understanding in the beginning. I just wanted to push something. I wanted to like push the app in a way that I thought was great. It's also because I was building it so fast, and obviously I jumped on it. I had the idea. I designed it myself. In my background, I'm a product designer, so I design apps for a living. And I designed it myself, and I handed it off to an engineering team. So there's a lot of gray areas there where that I didn't do. One was create a contract. That's where I failed. And the other aspect was like I knew this engineering team. They were doing really well. They I trusted them. Let's put it like that. I trusted this engineering team to build an app, and obviously I contracted them for a certain amount of money. Wasn't much. It was probably like around a little under 10K. Um, and they built the MVP, which is a minimum viable product. This is where a lot of that trust is given to the engineering team. They built the first MVP. We launched it. It was good. And again, like I trusted this team. I had an understanding of, okay, my app is built, what I designed, the expectation is there. We had our meetings, everything was good. But where it failed was I contracted them to do the MVP 2, right? Let's just put it like that. You can call it whatever you want. The next phase of the project was a certain set of features that I wanted to get built. This all included AI. This all included different aspects of the app that I wanted to include in social aspects, community engagement, retention tactics. But that aspect was being built, and and this is obviously the second phase of the project. The first phase was around 10K. The second phase was another 10K dropped, and this aspect was starting being built. I got a couple of updates here and there. We had a couple meetings to make sure that everything's going well, and then boom, ghost. So I didn't hear anything from my team. I didn't hear nothing. So I reached out and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Crickets. And so, long story short, my engineering team ended up going out of business, and they were telling me around, oh, like our computer motherboard is messing up. At that point, is a big red flag because it's like, I don't know. Like, well, it's a red flag because you want to start off with Obviously, creating the contracts when you're first starting out your project. If you're building something, it's an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and you also want to do some sort of contract that is between you and the engineer that your work is going to be handed off to you, depending on whatever the case is. And this is engineering work. Your work can be uploaded to the cloud, and you should have access to that. I didn't. So obviously, like, we've already launched the product, the first MVP. I already have the app launched. It's there. It's mine. But that second phase, I wanted to be able to take it forward and hand it off to another engineer so that we can keep pushing forward. But I couldn't, because that later the code for that phase 2 is gone. The initial code itself is gone. The engineering team, they went out of business, and because they just didn't have enough money to support the other engineers to build the project. There's like 4 or 5 of them on the team, small engineering team, but they just ran out of money. They ran out of business. I think that's also a part of, if you're building something, you start off small. If you have a certain budget, that's okay. Just recognize the budget that you have, and then most for sure recognize that, have contracts put in place. The only part that I didn't have was that contract to make sure that everything that you're working on is being uploaded to the cloud. That's where I messed up at. And so those are the kind of like the gray areas that you need to focus on in the beginning. Make sure that you have those elements in place so that later on it makes sense to what's happening. So after losing that aspect, they couldn't go any further because everything that we worked on was apparently lost because of the motherboard was messing up. And I just didn't hear from them after that, right? Unless I reach out. So I lost the code. Majority of that stuff was really complex. Spent around 2 years getting to a point where we were happy, or I was happy, right? And the reason I brought up just having like a passion, right? Having the goal, or having your product as something that's equivalent to having a baby or having a dog that you love, is because, and it's probably a bad example, that's fine, we're going to use this example for now, is because you're building this and you're learning throughout this entire process. You're building it, you're in the weeds of it. You have to put that effort into it, jump into every single facet of it, you got to show up every week. You build a passion out of that, right? They say like being consistent takes around 30 days. So I'm saying is like, build a passion within 30 days. So show up every day, building your product, doing every single thing that you can for it. Show up every day, right? Do it for 30 days, and you're going to build that passion for it. So I did that with this app for Wyglot. And just in short, Wyglot was a language learning app for content creators and locals, or people who are looking to learn a new language. Maybe this is for business, maybe this is for work, or maybe just you want to learn a new language. And what made it different between, let's say, Duolingo or Babbel was that with Wyglot, you were able to tell your story, or actually just let's say this, you were able to learn a new language through media content, which was media content as in articles and podcasts. So let's say if I create an article in English, somebody from Latin America, let's say Colombia, wants to read that article, they can then translate that information, translate the article. The article is obviously in English. They translate the article we translate the article in Spanish, and they would learn from that, right? So what happens is they're reading the article in English. We use AI to translate those contents into the speaker or the learner's language. So they're challenging themselves as they're reading this article, and then from there they can learn the information, because the article is in English, their native tongue is Spanish, and they're reading it and they can translate the content to learn from that. So launching this app, as I was building it, actually, within the 2 years of running Wyglot, as I was building it, I had beta access and I had beta signups, around like 100 to 200 beta signups. and I went to this conference called Collision Conference. It's now called Web Summit, and Collision was actually in Toronto, and Web Summit now is in Vancouver, Portugal. What's the other places? It's in a few other places. Rio, and Qatar. There we go. So Rio and Qatar. And I've only went to Portugal around 3 times, and I went to the one in Toronto once, and that was for Collision. And then I think Web Summit bought out Collision or something like that. I don't know. They stopped doing Collision Conference, but everything there, all the information, all of the branding and all that transitioned into Web Summit. So, and that's why I'm like, if you build something, treat it as your baby. Treat it as that dog that you just got, and it's like, this is your baby, right? So do everything you can to launch it, fall in love with it, talk about it, be within the weeds of it, learn every facet of it, because you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to meet a lot of people who might like your product. And if it fails, it fails. Move on to the next one. But you learned that failure, and that's where I'm at now. I've learned from that failure. Obviously, I'm building another product, which is this one, Wildbox. But with Yglot, I fell in love with it. I traveled to Central South America. I traveled to Europe. The biggest thing there was like, I really wanted to learn Spanish, and that was kind of my starting point. That was my journey of learning Spanish, and the reasons why, of the founder's journey, because using apps like Duolingo, Babbel didn't really teach anything. It didn't motivate me, but actually being surrounded by the language was the key starting point of why I started Yglot. Being surrounded by the language. You're reading articles and media content in the language. And so in order to challenge yourself, you need to practice it. You need to tap on words. You can translate sentences, and it'll give you that information. It'll give you a challenge. I stayed in Peru volunteering abroad for around 2 months. I stayed in, where else was I? Costa Rica for a month. I went to Colombia for a month. All of this to learn Spanish, to get better at Spanish, and also to work with my business partner, and also to do business. I went to Mexico City for business. This was more so of like a startup accelerator for Yglot. There was a program out there in Mexico City that I joined. And so I learned a lot. I was in the weeds of it, and I enjoyed every bit of it. So I think the biggest advice here is that if you're going to start something, if you're going to be a founder for a product that you want to launch, an app, make sure that you be in the weeds of it. Love it like your own baby. Love it like your own baby. Make sure that you are crossing your I's and dotting your T's in the beginning. Get a contract, an NDA. Especially if you just have an idea, it's okay. Like, have somebody, if you want to talk about your idea and you don't know where to start, create a brief. Have an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. You can easily create that with ChatGPT, or that's probably the worst advice. Don't create it with AI, because you need a lot of things with legal, and a lot of things such as NDA, terms and conditions, the privacy policy. The easiest way to do that is ChatGPT, but it's probably terrible advice, because you need more information, and that stuff people can get sued off of reviewing the information, especially you're holding data, right? So like email, personal information, that's privacy policy, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, the easiest way to get it done is through AI, right? But I'd highly recommend to hire a lawyer, pay them like $300, $400, $500 for an actual NDA, an actual privacy policy. Get them like a package deal. They'll give you like a package deal for that kind of stuff. There's also tools out there to understand your business needs, and it'll build it for you. An NDA is super easy to build. I would go on Upwork. I would go on Fiverr, or just hire a local lawyer to build that kind of stuff for you, who understands that stuff, right? It'll cost you a couple $100. That's the best advice there, is hire a lawyer or go on Fiverr or Upwork to build that. So, and also come up with a contract that makes sure that your engineering team or whoever's going to build the app for you is going to upload that stuff in a way that you have access to it. Okay. Because like when anything happens, and when shit hits the fan, you have access to your code or whatever it is that they built, and you can just transition that over to another engineer. That's where I failed. I failed because I didn't set those expectations up front, and that's where I failed. So now I don't have access to the app. I tried to rebuild it, right? But there was a certain bit of complexity that I needed, and I don't think AI, because like right now, I spent around a month to rebuild Yglot using AI, with these AI app builders, but there was a certain complexity in there that I don't trust with AI to build. That kind of stuff it's like hand painting, right? Like it's hand painting something. I prefer hand painting versus using AI slop, where it's like you in a prompt you tell AI to design this piece of art, which takes around seconds to build, but it's like I need somebody to hand paint that for me, right? So just kind of make it sound a little bit easier. I need somebody to actually hand paint this. So when you build it with AI, it builds it in bulk, but you want to go in the weeds of it and actually build something in specific that's also handcrafted. I need it handcrafted. I need it hand painted, right? But yeah, so learn from this. Learn from my mistakes. If you're starting off as a founder, learn from my mistakes. But also, it's okay to make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody has made mistakes. Even some of the biggest successful people out there who've built things, who are famous, who are building something now, and they're making millions. They've made mistakes in the past too, right? So learn from that. Make sure to like and follow, subscribe to this video, and yeah, hopefully you learn from my mistakes. And yeah, I'll also be talking about a lot more of Wildbox. This is kind of like the founder's journey. I also talk about a little bit around AI and what's happening there. But make sure to follow and like and subscribe to this video. I got a lot more stuff around this and some advice for people who are building apps. And yeah, follow my journey. Peace.